Hello, this is Ed Davis again with Wings of Grace, continuing the study in Chapter 2. This is Section 2.9, dealing with electronic cockpit, glass cockpits and advanced flight systems. We'll briefly cover this. None of the aircraft that we operate at Wings of Grace utilize electronic flight displays and such like that, but it is something that we need to be aware of because as you go out into the world flying different aircraft, you will encounter these and want to be aware of them, and we'll discuss some of the things you want to think about as you're moving forward in your career in aviation. So we'll just dive right in here. Glass cockpits are systems of advanced avionics, are replacing the older round dial gauges common in many training aircraft. In fact, many flight schools today are already converting their aircraft or buying aircraft with electronic flight displays in them now. An aircraft which is equipped with an electronic flight display can offer new capabilities and simplify the basic flying tasks such as the traditional cross-country flight planning and fuel management. And as you look at the system that's on your screen right now, you see that basically you have this particular system. I believe the aircraft is a Cirrus S-22. It has two basically computer screens, and this particular system has a navigation screen in the middle that has radar overlay, and you can get all kinds of overlays, traffic overlays and stuff like that. And then your flight instrumentation is right directly in front of you. You have a different kind of attitude indicator. This was not only are you given the information off an attitude indicator that we looked at just before this, but also you have altitude and speed bars, and then below that you see something that looks like a directional gyro, and there are all different kinds of ways that can be displayed and things be overlaid, and it can give you a lot of information in one spot. You can overlay navigation lines on this. They come with, some of them come with synthetic vision and all the such like that. But it's interesting that in this system, you still, if you look down at the bottom of the instrument panel, you see just a standard altimeter, a standard artificial horizon, and a regular airspeed indicator. That many of these systems, they still require analog backup to the digital systems. But it's a very different kind of cockpit layout. It does give you allow you to have a lot more information at your hands, but it does require learning to look at it and interpret it in a different way. In order to safely fly using a glass cockpit, regularly scan both inside and outside. Use all appropriate checklists and cross-check with other forms of information. Basically what we're getting at here is we don't want to get into some sort of issue where we're just playing a video game. As a VFR pilot, it is still your responsibility to be looking outside the airplane, looking for traffic and navigating by what you see outside. One of the things that you have to be aware of in these systems is because so much of it is automated, some of the research that, all the research that is being done in the area of human factors and dealing with glass cockpits and automation is that it has a tendency to cause the human pilot to disengage from the process. Because of the automation, there's a disconnect between the pilot and the airplane, and it is easy for the pilot to disengage and kind of check out or become complacent and relying on the tools and on the boxes. And we don't ever want to get ourselves in that situation. We've seen, if you have been following aviation, you've seen here recently several accidents where the flight crews were overly dependent on the systems, and the systems were not functioning properly. So you want to constantly be self-aware and aware of what's going on in your system and stay engaged with the flight, and don't become so complacent that you're completely reliant on the automation and the programming, that you're able to do it and process things on your own. Another thing that you want to think about too, from a standpoint of training, I've never flown anything that has any kind of electronic flight displays in them, and they can seem to be rather daunting and overwhelming when you first get it. And if you've never flown in that, you've always been flying with just basic round instruments. But the research bears out that it's actually easier to transition from the traditional instruments to an electronic flight display than it is to go from an electronic flight display to the traditional instruments. There is a certain amount of mental gymnastics when you get into the instrument flying that you have to do, and a certain amount of mental acuity that has to be developed to fly on the old traditional instruments, and those skills are not developed when you're flying off the electronic flight displays. So a couple things that you just, from a practical standpoint, as you're getting into it, is number one, recognize that if you trained on the electronic flight displays, don't think you're going to be competent using the round gauges. And understand it may be more difficult for you to transition to round gauges than the round gauge pilot is going to have difficulty in transitioning to the electronic flight display. Another thing you want to be very careful of when you're going into this kind of environment is there are a number of different systems. A number of different companies produce these systems and these displays. Garmin produces them, Honeywell produces them. There are a number of different companies that produce them, and there is not a standardized way of operating with them. Each one of them have their own way. So you want to get specific training in the system that you're going to be operating. You might be operating a G500 or a G1000 or an Avidyne system or something like that. And when you get into that kind of aircraft, you're going to need specific training in that system. Even in the airplanes that we fly, we have Garmin GPS navigation systems, and they take training. It's not intuitive. You have to learn the systems and what we call the buttonology on them to make the GNS 530 and the 430 work properly and do all that it will do. And in the same way, once you upgrade into the electronic flight displays, you're going to need to get the training to know how to operate the system. But on top of that, as a pilot, it's easy to get engrossed with all the things that the toys will do and forget about flying in the airplane. Remember that your number one job as the pilot is to fly the plane. Don't get into a situation where you are completely engrossed in trying to make this electronic gizmo do what you want it to do, that you forget to fly the airplane, and the next thing you know, you're flying it into the ground or on the side of a mountain or something like that. So although there are many capabilities in the electronic flight displays, they also have their hindrances, they also have their limitations, and they also have their own special factors that you have to be aware of. And one of those big factors is complacency and disengagement on the part of the pilot. So that's the electronic flight displays, the glass cockpits, lesson 2.9. Maybe you'll get the chance to fly a system like that one of these days and see what it's all about. You can come back and tell me about it. And hopefully one of these days I'll get to fly in a system like that. But that's where things are going. Just add on to that, one of the reasons why they're going is not only because of the capabilities, but also the reliability and the cheapness. It's a lot cheaper to build the electronic systems than it is the old analog systems. So just from a financial standpoint, you're seeing it more and more and more and more because you can do a lot more with a lot less money with the electronic flight displays. So anyway, that's the lesson 2.9. You have a great day, and we'll see you next time.